I'm Xfinity's David Onda, and I'm here with Nightflyers star Gretchen Mull. Hi, Gretchen. How are you? Tell me a little bit about what you love about Nightflyers.
What I love, I loved working on the. I loved working on the project. I loved that everything that I thought would be one way ended up being elevated. So I was pleasantly surprised all of the time by the writing, by the scenes that I was given, that there was always more to them that met the eye. Like when we would come to play the scene, you'd find more of an emotional center to it than you actually thought was there. So I don't know if it was just because it's a different genre for me, and so not to say that I was underestimating it, I wasn't. I was excited to be a part of a world and have the sort of character come from out of that. But not that it was a character-driven thing. Like right. Andrew McCarthy, who was like our producing director on the show, kept saying it's not a kitchen sink drama, Gretchen. And it's like, it's true. It's not. You just have to kind of jump off the cliff with. It's like an actress stood up and asked a question about how to do these scenes, and it was like almost easier in some ways than these kitchen sink dramas, because you just give yourself the circumstances that are so kind of crazy and out there, and you can never equate them to anything in your life necessarily, but that almost makes it like you just sort of play,
Can you tell me a little bit about the character you play in this series?
Dr. Agatha Matheson, and she's a psychiatrist. On Earth, she is a person who oversees and caretakes L1s, which are telepaths. And so we're 75 years in the future, and there's these telepathic human beings, and they're sort of ostracized or kept away from society. And my character is interested in working with them, what's sort of useful about them, also not letting them be, they're outliers, but in a society that is sort of keeping them away, how can they be integrated into the world and understood? And then she's asked to go on this mission and bring sort of the top student, as it were, that she works with, because Carl DeBrannon thinks that might be the energies are similar for what's coming off the Vulcaran and the telepathic energy, that they might be able to communicate. So that's why we're there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned that this sci-fi genre is not something you're used to. What was it like exploring at this point in your career a whole new genre, and were there things to learn that maybe surprised you?
Yeah, I was excited to the visceral aspect of it, of that kind of performance, the screaming and that's more the horror angle of it, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that kind of play, or being on a spaceship and flying and learning how to do that. I loved the sort of physical aspects to it. And I also really liked the challenge of taking the material and really trying to ground it and bringing it literally down to earth inside, so that what you're saying has meaning to you, and so what you're fighting for, you're really fighting for, and I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Great. Well, I can't wait to see the series. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So, Angus, tell me a little bit about your character in Nightflyers.
My character's Christian name is Rowan. They never referred to his surname. What's a surname you'd like for Rowan? You could just give my character. We could just say that you could give my character a surname. You and George R.R. Martin could have written together. If you come up with a surname now,
Rowan Blackhawk.
RB.
Yeah.
Love the old Hawkster.
Yeah.
He's a xenobiologist. He does have a surname in the novella, but they never referenced it in the series. But I play a xenobiologist from Australia, surprisingly. When they asked me to be part of it, they said, "Oh, you can be whatever accent or from where ethnicity that you wish." And I was like, "South African?" And they're like, "No, anyone you wish other than South African." And I was like, "American?" They're like, "We'd be happy if he was Australian." I'm like, British. And they're like, Australian? But my worry was they wanted me to say such things as like, Struth, it's a bloody alien. Fortunately, they didn't.
Good.
Yeah.
What kind of research do you have to do to play a xenobiologist to generally sound like you know what you're talking about?
I don't know the answer to that.
No?
No. What I did, I watched lots of nature documentaries. Then I realized that xenobiology is not about Earth-related biology. It's actually alien biology. But I very much enjoyed the ability with most space things set in space, set in the future. I feel, with all due respect, some of them, I should say, not most, they give up things like character and what have you that we hold dear now. Like when we did Mad Max, I remember George Miller saying, well, humans, they take things with them. They hold the beauty in found objects, old things. In most sci-fi, there's like a cleanliness and crispness of things, like everything's, there's nothing analog left. So I was trying to keep everything in the past. So I let everyone else sort of have their design moments, and then I was like, maybe I could wear a cardigan, and perhaps Rowan could be a knitter, and maybe he likes butterflies. I was just trying to take anything that I could from present day, rather than imagine, no, they don't use those things in the future, or they don't do those things in the future. So as far as research goes, I tried to read as much as I could. I watched Cosmos, which I thought was wonderful, and basically took a lot of notes from that, and even made suggestions to the creatives after watching it, like I had, discovered these things in my casual reading. Rather than attribute it to Cosmos, the series.
So if you could... okay. Oh. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
That was quick.
It's very, very sudden.
Oh, I wasn't allowed to talk about Neil?
No.
I wasn't, yeah.
You have one more question.
Can I have one more question? All right, one more. Out of all the things you can watch out there on television,
yes,
tell people why they should check out Nightflyers on Sci-Fi.
Well, they have to have cable television.
They do. They have Xfinity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why should you watch it? Well, because in the opening scene of the series, Gretchen Mole and I dance with one another, armed with an axe and a circular saw, and by the time the titles roll of the opening episode of the season, one of us isn't breathing.
That's sold. I'm sold. Check it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Jeff, what does it take to get a series like Nightflyers, the scope of something like this, done on Sci-Fi?
A lot of work.
Yeah.
We bit off a lot with this one. It's a really ambitious production. To be honest with you, what it takes is a ton of talented people. And so going all the way to our pilot director, Mike Cahill, our production designer, David Sandifer, who built the most incredible sets I've ever seen. This was a group effort. Our incredible cast. Everyone who read the script and fell in love with this story, read the novella, understood what I was trying to do with the TV series. Everybody who decided to sign on had such incredible passion for this. It was that spark that built that team that could get it done. But it was a huge undertaking for sure.
And Mike Cahill is one of the best young directors working today. So incredible. I'm super excited to see what he does with it. When you think about an audience watching this series for the first time, what are the things that excite you? Like, what do you say, I can't wait for an audience to see this?
It's the same things that excite me when I watch really great science fiction. I love horror. I love character. I like deep, well-drawn characters. We have all of that in there. Haunted house in space. That to me, I'm in right there. It was super fun to create, to come up with horror set pieces that we have never seen before, and there was just a lot of stuff that we were able to bring to the story that didn't exist in the novella. The novella is 100 pages, so we were able, there's a lot of space in there to fill in and create stuff that was just, out of whole cloth. And we took the advantage of that to try to make each episode totally different, totally scary, and feel like it had its own life and vibe to it. So that was just a really fun playground to be in.
Yes. So to your point about the horror genre, that this super saturated sci-fi, it's hard to think of something that hasn't been done. Where does this go off in its most original form?
Well, I feel like we've seen elements that are in this show, but not all in one place. I don't think we've ever seen a show that is so visceral and scary and driven by the psychology of the characters that asks big thematic questions like, what are we doing with our planet as a race, as a human, as a species. So we tackled big themes, big ideas. A lot of science fiction is very aspirational, and you get the sense that science is going to save us from our problems. And in Nightflyers, we kind of flip that on its head. It's like, is science the problem? Are we the problem? Is there some combination of what humans are and what science gives us that is the problem? And we start to pull apart those big questions, and I don't think we've seen that in a lot of other shows.
So we're doomed.
We are doomed, and it's super fun being doomed.
Thank you. Take care, Jeff. So, Owen, what can you tell me about your character in Nightflyers?
My character, Carl de Brannon, is the astrophysicist who discovers that there may be aliens who exist, and he is a very obsessed individual who was trying to basically the first person to make contact with aliens. He's to convince everybody else that they do exist, but also justify what can happen when you do make contact, because what if they want to kill you? And everything's on his shoulders, and essentially he's got to be the one to make those decisions. So that's a little bit about Carl.
What is it about a series like this that challenges you as an actor?
Purely from an acting point of view, I had to go to a lot of very dark, exhausting, emotional places, which I haven't had to do before, because this show goes to incredibly visceral subject matter and incredible visceral kind of areas that you wouldn't ever really do. And the kind of, even the very concept of what you're willing to sacrifice to help someone else, and whether or not actually becomes about helping yourself, that line becomes blurred. So it's that kind of conversation of what is actually best for everybody else, or what is subjective to Carl, that becomes an interesting blurred line. So.
When you think about an audience sitting down and watching Nightflyers for the first time, what is it that excites you about what they'll see and what they'll experience while watching this?
Pretty much because they've no idea what's going to happen, and I didn't. And it's from the first episode, it's fascinating, but it goes to some really, really, really bizarre, dark, messed up places, which actually takes the character. Everyone always says, "Oh, my character's complex" and all that nonsense, but genuinely, this goes to some really, really fascinating, bizarre avenues that just it's great. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Take
Cheers.
care. So tell me a little bit about Nightflyers and your character on Nightflyers.
Okay, so Nightflyers is a show about this group of scientists that go to space on this mission to kind of figure out if they can contact this alien life that Carl de Brannon, played by Owen Mackin, has discovered. And along the way, something starts stalking everyone to their deaths. And I play Melantha Gel, who is kind of a super astronaut in a way. I was genetically engineered from birth to be able to survive as a human off planet better than the average human. A little bit stronger, metabolism's a little bit faster, bone density is a little bit thicker, things that, the way that the body normally breaks down with, when astronauts are in space for a long time. Melantha has kind of been engineered to guard herself against that.
Is it flattering to have someone cast you as someone who's even better than human?
I mean, it's because they know that it's the truth of who I am. So, no, it is. It's so cool that to be asked to play that kind of role, that people are like, hey, we could totally see you embodying someone who's been enhanced and is, meant to represent kind of this huge sort of like push in research and development and technology of what we can do in science, what we can do with humans. And I mean, we're already kind of doing gene splicing, I don't know if you've heard of the CRISPR program, like the science is already there, but it's kind of controversial, right? It's like, if we can start selecting genes, like what are people going to do? So it's a really interesting thing to sort of be living in that and like sort of embodying this individual who has been her whole life sort of on this tunnel vision mission of like being an astronaut living off planet, you know. And that's also what's interesting about the show, is that it is also about Melantha's journey of like figuring out what it means to her to now be in this experience that she's sort of been preparing her whole life for. And like, does she still want to be in that experience? Is this even what she wanted it to be? You know what I mean? So like, that's really interesting too, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you so
Thanks.
much. And watch it. Nightflyers, sci-fi.
Watch it.
Just say Comic-Con into your Xfinity X1 voice remote to see even more from this year's con.